So dear brothers and sisters, today is the feast of Saint Anthony of Padua, who wasn't Italian at all. The Italians stole him. So he's from Lisbon, actually, in Portugal, and his name was Fernando originally. So he's a contemporary of St. Francis of Assisi, and wanted to be a monk, and then met the Franciscan order, entered the Franciscans there, and was fairly unknown within the Franciscan order. He went about his tasks diligently, but on one particular occasion, they used to do this. It's still a tradition to this day that a couple of times a year, I think it's twice a year, the Dominicans and the Franciscans will celebrate Mass together. The tradition today is that during the feast of St. Dominic, a Franciscan will preach, and during the feast of St. Francis, a Dominican will preach. This was as a sign of unity amongst them, because while they were more or less contemporaries, the St. Dominic and St. Francis, they had two very different approaches to religious life. So for the Dominicans, it was all about study and teaching, the order of preachers. So they were very academic, and to this day, thankfully, in Ireland, they're a fantastic order, doing great work. So they're a little more academic. They like their books, and they preach and teach very well. Fantastic. We need that too, especially when the church slips into error or heresy, or isn't quite sure what to make of certain things. You need people who know what the church teaches and what the church has taught in the past in order to keep it all together. The Franciscans, on the other hand, saw that there's also a need to get back to basics as regards belief in God's providence. So living in poverty, believing that God will provide. St. Francis lived this in an exceptional way by simply going to live in a forest, like camping. He went camping, basically, and then they would literally beg for their food. So with buckets, they would go around to families and say, have you anything left over? And even though Italian food is lovely, if you get a bucket and put some leftover gnocchi in, and then some leftover spaghetti in, and then some leftover bread, and then some leftover milk, and then some leftover coffee, right, in the same bucket, Italians who always separate their foods on different plates, this is absolute heresy, to have all your food in one bucket. But that's how they ate, that's how they lived, like the mendicant order, they were a begging order. This is what they did. So this is exceptional. And people were attracted, men were attracted to this lifestyle of camping in the forest, praying to Jesus, begging for your food. Hence the Franciscan order began. So you can see these two orders are quite different. So St. Francis was fearful of the Franciscans studying too much and becoming arrogant, because when one is a little more intelligent than one's neighbour, one is a little better than one's neighbour isn't one. And so there's just this danger of pride, this danger of arrogance. So he was very hesitant to have Franciscans study. So St. Anthony, there was this one particular occasion then where there was a celebration with the Dominicans and the Franciscans. The Franciscans thought the Dominicans were preaching, Dominicans thought the Franciscans were preaching. No one had been organised, and so they said, well, what do we do? How about Antonio there? Let's give Antonio a shot. So St. Anthony preached and won them all over by his eloquence and his depth in his preaching. And so began a preaching ministry and mission. Francis then met him and allowed him to do further study and to teach within the Franciscan order. So St. Anthony had a book of the Psalms where he had written all of his various reflections and notes into the book of Psalms for teaching the other Franciscans. And one novice, after he decided to leave the order, thought he would bring this book of Psalms with him. And so he proceeded to take the book with him. Now, keep in mind, this is back in the 13th century. Printing press, non-existent. So copies of books were hard to come by. Books were very valuable. So if someone steals a book, it's not like you can just go get another. So he stole, and not to mention all of Anthony's notes on it, which he used to teach. So St. Anthony prayed, and the book indeed was returned. The novice returned it, and apparently the novice actually returned himself and went on to become a priest, who was never trusted by St. Anthony, I imagine. But there you go. Hi, morning. Just keep my book over here. So that's where he became the patron saint of lost things, praying for lost things to be found. Okay, so yes, he was a wonderful preacher and teacher. On another occasion, while preaching in a certain city, the people did not listen to him, and this often happened. This is something that, no matter how good you are, happened to Jesus himself. Preaching and teaching, not everyone listens, not everyone likes what you have to say. So Anthony said, fine, I'll go preach to the fish. So he did, went over to the harbour, started preaching to the fish, and then a shoal of fish gathers, and their little fishy heads peep over the water and start listening to him. Again, this isn't just a childish story of our entertainment, but it was a witness to the people that this man is worth listening to, and that this man is holy. So he was a man of great sanctity. And see, this is we see the fruit, we see the external manifestations of the man's faith. We are only earthenware jars that hold this treasure, to make it clear that such an overwhelming power comes from God and not from us. So this is the foundation. The foundation of it is our unity with God. The foundation of any miracles or success in preaching and teaching isn't just in one's intelligence or eloquence. You can learn that from books and these days from YouTube videos. Just practice and you'll be fine. You'll learn it. But that's not what brings about conversion. That's not what brings about change of heart. Ultimately, that's not what pleases God. We can preach and teach all we want and write books on theology. That's not what makes us saints. What makes us saints isn't what we know. What makes us saints is what we do. What makes us saints is what we do. That's why recently I've just been struck by this line I've heard it a million times, but it's just, when a certain line from Scripture just kind of hits deeper, or it just resonates with maybe something you're going through at the time. But that line from Luke 6:45. The good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good. The evil person out of the evil treasure produces evil. For it is out of the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks. It is from the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks. And we listen to this and we go, isn't that lovely? And then if you very briefly look at your own mouth. So, my mouth. Do I speak words of affirmation? Do I speak positive words? And that's not to say that when needs be that you can be clear about things. We don't always have to talk about daffodils and roses and hyacinths and unicorns. At times you have to actually be clear that this needs to be done now. If that's okay, if you could just that'd be great. That's not lacking charity or not lacking love. But if what comes out of my mouth tends to be negative, if I almost get a certain joy out of being negative, out of criticizing, out of complaining, then that's what fills my heart. Then that actually means my heart is full, or at least there's a good portion of negativity or sadness or criticism, or if that's what spills out of my mouth, chances are during the day I'm sitting there going, he's late, he's useless, she's no good, he can't wash up, he can't. That's more than likely what fills my heart, if that's what spills out of my mouth. So I think it's just such a useful tool of reflection, to keep ourselves in check. Just to ask ourselves very honestly before the Lord, what is spilling out of my mouth? Is it joy? Is it affirmation? Is it positivity? Or is it criticism and negativity? Because if that's what fills my heart, okay, if that's what fills my heart, we should be careful then not just to make the thing worse by saying, oh, I'm full of negativity, and now start listening to negative things about yourself. I'm the worst, I'm useless, I'm terrible, I'm a failure. You're just doing more of the same. Okay, you're just compounding the problem. Stop with the negativity. We Irish, we love complaining about the weather. We love complaining about politicians. We love complaining about the church, actually. Even within the church, we're terrible for it. We love complaining, addicted to complaining. And it's awful. It's such a bad habit. You know, like we're much more prone to say, oh, the showers are due now later this evening, rather than saying, what a beautiful morning. You know, so what fills our hearts? If it's negativity, then stop with the negativity, and don't criticize yourself either for being negative, or you're just adding to the negativity. Focus on the Lord. Lord, I thank you for today. And add it, like Father Paul used to often say to us, a thankful heart is a joyful heart. A thankful heart is a joyful heart. So rather than allowing our hearts to be filled with negativity, and then that's what spills out when we speak, we fill our hearts with gratitude. So we choose. This is a choice. It's an act of the will. I choose to be grateful. So I'm grateful for sleep, for breakfast, for people, for little kiddies with little, what's her name on Despicable Me? Agnes. Little Agnes haircut. We're grateful for all these beautiful things. We're grateful for the weather today, for the deep green grass that surrounds this house, for gnocchi with particular Napolitano flavor of them. You know, we're grateful for these things. Fantastic. Focus on all that rather than look at the heap of wash up. Look at my belt slightly tighter than it was yesterday. Look at the showers due now this afternoon. Stop with the negativity. Thank the Lord for all the blessings. And if that's what we focus on, that's what will start to spill out of our mouths. Gratitude and affirmation and thanksgiving. And then we start to put an end to this negativity and sadness within us. Choosing to be grateful. And don't get me wrong, there's still always a lot to do, and there's still a lot that is wrong, yes. But what do I choose to focus on? There are so many blessings around us. After all, we are only earthenware jars that hold this treasure. To make it clear to the others, to everyone else, that such an overwhelming power comes from God and not from us. We are in difficulties. I love the way St. Paul writes this, because he's not riding a unicorn while he writes this. We are in difficulties on all sides, but never cornered. We see no answer to our problems, but we never despair. We have been persecuted, and he knew what persecution meant. We have been persecuted, but never deserted. We have been knocked down, but never killed. They only knocked us down. They didn't kill us. That's positivity. They only knocked me down, sure. They only stoned me. I didn't die. Always, wherever we may be, we carry with us in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus too may always be seen in our body. That's choosing to see the good, to see the positive, to see the blessing. And therefore, with a heart filled with that kind of an attitude, we can face anything. And our reaction to the difficulties of life will actually be an example to others. For it is from the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks. Amen.